Good Tuesday morning. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Michelle Beck.
New this morning, authorities in Andover are investigating a deadly crash involving a school bus. It happened near 175th Avenue Northwest and Roanoke Street Northwest. Police say a pickup carrying a trailer crossed the center lane, slamming into the bus head-on. The driver of that truck died. 5 students and the bus driver were all on the school bus. The driver and 1 student were taken to the hospital. They are expected to be okay. The rest of the students were picked up by their parents. The crash is under investigation by Minnesota State Patrol.
Just in this morning, a second detainee who was shot at a Dallas ICE facility last week has died. According to the League of United Latin American Citizens, Miguel Hernandez was removed from life support. Another man, Norland Fuente, also died in that shooting, according to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A third person was hurt, but the extent of their injuries is not known. The shooter, according to the FBI, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Developing right now, the Department of Justice suing Minnesota and other states over its immigrant sanctuary policies. Right now, both Twin Cities mayors are vowing to take this to court and win. Here's a point in the complaint that summarizes the DOJ's case. Quote, Minnesota's unwillingness to cooperate with federal immigration agencies has endangered public safety, resulting in criminals being released into Minnesota rather than turned over to immigration authorities for removal from the U.S. End quote. Minnesota's Attorney General calls the lawsuit baseless as he's named a defendant. Also in that list include the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis.
We will not back down. We will fight with every bit of our strength for our immigrant communities. We will stand by our neighbors, and we're going to win in court. So let's just be really clear to everybody. This is not an issue where we will back down. We're going to win this thing.
Now, St. Paul's mayor issued his own statement saying his city will never back down. And as the Trump DOJ's latest target, Minnesota joins several states and cities to be sued over their sanctuary policies. Already, New York City, Boston, and Colorado are on that list. In Washington this morning, all signs are pointing toward a government shutdown just after midnight tonight. President Trump and congressional leaders from both parties held a face-to-face meeting yesterday at the White House, but left with no compromise and time running out. NBC's Alice Barr is watching all the latest developments from Washington.
Hi there. There were no breakthroughs in that White House meeting, and judging by what the two sides have said since, it does not appear serious negotiations are underway as federal workers and the nation brace for a shutdown. On the final day before a government shutdown, hope is fading for a compromise.
I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
The two parties trading blame after the top 4 congressional leaders met with President Trump and Vice President Vance.
Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before.
Republicans adamant Senate Democrats should sign on to the short-term funding bill that passed the House without requiring bipartisan support.
There's nothing partisan in here. No policy riders, none of our big party preferences.
Democrats are holding out to reverse health care cuts and extend Obamacare's subsidies set to expire at the end of the year, and say they don't trust GOP promises to take the issue up later.
When they say later, they mean never. We have to do it now.
President Trump has said a shutdown could bring mass firings of federal workers and called demands from Democrats unserious and ridiculous. Then last night, the president posted a fake video with a sombrero edited onto Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in the House, while the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, delivers a manipulated, likely AI-generated speech. Schumer responded to the president, "If you think your shutdown is a joke, it proves you can't negotiate, you can only throw tantrums," while Jeffries said, quote, "Bigotry will get you nowhere." The sharp words further sign of how far apart the two sides are as federal workers wait to hear if their paychecks will stop.
We are very, very concerned about the next few days, very stressed, very anxious.
In a looming shutdown. Federal workers are paid back after a shutdown ends. Those short-term needs and the threat of permanent job loss are heightening the stress this time. Today, Senate Republicans are set to advance a measure to keep the government open temporarily. It would need at least 8 Democrats to pass, and that appears very unlikely. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
Happening this week, students from Annunciation Church and School in Minneapolis are returning full-time. It's just over a month since the deadly shooting that shook the country. Annunciation leaders say while not everything will be as it was before, it is closer to normal for the students. Happening right now, Governor Walz is still negotiating with leaders in the divided legislature to figure out a path forward for a possible special session. He still hasn't set a date for that more than a month after the Annunciation Church shooting. Lawmakers are deadlocked right now over an assault weapons ban, which is the DFL's top priority. But it's not clear if the DFL even has the votes in its own party to pass that in the narrowly divided Senate. It's even tougher in the tied House. At the MinnPost Festival this weekend, that's a ticketed public speaking event in Minneapolis, Governor Walz suggested that perhaps voters should decide on an assault weapons ban through a ballot question and constitutional amendment. Getting a question on the ballot would still require legislature approval and then a majority vote of the public. Here's what legislative leaders in the tied House had to say last week about the ongoing negotiations.
It's personal. My predecessor was murdered in an act of gun violence 3 months ago. We are absolutely united in our desire to do something really meaningful on gun violence.
Right now in the legislature overall, what I understand is there are not the votes that would support a ban on guns.
Meanwhile, several faith leaders are working together to push for more funding at the state capitol's next session. They're specifically looking for more money to increase security at non-public schools, which are often attached to churches, to synagogues, and other places of worship. Recent attacks have also sparked even more conversations and cooperation across many different faiths. At the Jewish Community Relations Council, leaders say they're often meeting with those in the Christian, Muslim, and Hindu communities to talk security. They often share ideas, strategies, and information whenever they come across a possible threat.
I think what we see often whenever there's a tragedy and there was some intelligence prior is that the information was siloed, that people weren't talking to each other, right? And so part of our work is breaking down those silos.
The head of security at the Basilica of St. Mary says the biggest concern with security is finding that balance between safety and a welcoming environment. Happening today, one of the defendants in that alleged Medicaid fraud scheme is heading to court. The case is so big, it's being called the largest ever prosecuted by a Minnesota Attorney General. Audrey Russo is at the Hennepin County Courthouse with the latest.
At 9 a.m., the person prosecutors describe as the principal actor in this nearly $11 million Medicaid fraud scheme is due before a judge. And this comes just 5 days after the defense filed a motion to dismiss all of the charges based on a lack of probable cause, a motion that was denied by a judge. Take a look at this paperwork. We found this denial from the courts online this morning. Now, Abdi Rashid Saeed is charged with 10 counts, including perjury, racketeering, and aiding and abetting a theft by swindle. Saeed and 2 others are accused of operating personal care assistant businesses where they allegedly overbilled clients to secure Medicaid reimbursement funds. Saeed was already convicted in a different theft by swindle case back in 2021, and at that time, a judge ordered that he not work for any companies receiving Medicaid reimbursements. So that was back in 2021. These most recent charges came down in 2023. Back to you.
This morning, a former elementary school teacher is in custody after admitting to an inappropriate relationship with a 5th grader. Madison Bergman cried in court yesterday after agreeing to a plea deal for child enticement and sexual misconduct. Police finding more than 35,000 text messages between Bergman and the 11-year-old student. They kissed and wrote love letters. Bergman also admitted to trying to isolate him in a secluded place. Her attorney says she's going through sex offender treatment.
She is trying to figure out why she did this, how she would never do this again, and how to make herself a better person and better for society.
Bergman faces up to 12 years in prison. She'll be sentenced in December. Meanwhile, Abigail Faust, who worked at the same school as Bergman, is also accused of kissing a student. In addition, documents from a separate case show Faust is charged with sexually assaulting 2 other teens. Documents say Faust worked as a nanny for one boy's family and met the other through him. She's due in court on those charges next month. Starting today, the IRS is phasing out paper refunds. It comes after President Trump signed an executive order in March, rolling back the use of checks in the government. The IRS says this will help prevent financial fraud and improper payments. Going forward, this means all departments and agencies will use direct deposit, debit or credit cards, and real-time transfers. This morning, another era of Twins baseball is on the horizon after the team fired manager Rocco Baldelli. Baldelli had the third most wins for a manager in franchise history, but this last season was disastrous with the team going 70-92. This year, the Twins sent away 10 players, cutting $26 million from the payroll. Following the trade deadline, they went 19-35. That plus the controversial decision not to sell the team also led to low attendance. Team president Derek Falvey says, quote, "This game is ultimately measured by results, and over the past 2 seasons, we did not reach the goals we set." Twins fans and those who cover the team say firing Rocco Baldelli won't solve all the team's problems. Fans at Bunny's Bar and Grill say they think Rocco was a scapegoat for the Twins' losing season. They say higher-ups need to ensure player consistency and invest more money into the team. The experts over at Twins Daily agree, host Lou Hennessy saying it's not a coincidence the Twins haven't had a recent playoff run.
I think you can see a direct correlation between when they stopped spending and when they started cutting from that payroll and when things really took a downturn. This team, it feels like ages ago, but at the end of 2023, even with their second round elimination there, the team was on top of the world. Fans were very, very happy with how things were going. And unfortunately, that lack of investment led to where we are today.
Okay, a lot more to come today. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.